Hello, and thank you for joining me for A Psychologist Looks at Scripture. I am Peter Doherty, a Catholic priest and a psychologist, and I am delighted to have you here with me. On this podcast, I blend my background in psychology and scripture studies to offer fresh perspectives on the Gospels and explore creative approaches to pastoral care for Christians. The Gospels offer a continued invitation for us to deepen our faith, find wisdom, and grow spiritually. There's always more to discover together. Each episode is about 7 to 10 minutes long and aims to share insights and reflections that might enrich your spiritual journey. Your questions and comments mean a lot to me. Your feedback helps this podcast grow and flourish. Today, our podcast focuses upon the Gospel from Luke. This Gospel will be read on August the 3rd, 2025. There are a wealth of teachings in this gospel. First, we have someone asking Jesus to help settle his case, to judge the merits of an inheritance dispute. Jesus does not take the bait and makes it clear to the individual that he is not here to judge. This is a valuable reminder to people who so often see God as one who judges and punishes. Jesus is very clear about his role. Jesus tells another parable of a man with a bountiful harvest who decides to store his grain and live well for a few years. No one can blame him for wanting to take it easy. I doubt this is a far cry from our own wishes. How many of us would love to win the lottery or have thought about what they would do if they did win? The man is given an opportunity and he takes it. What then is the issue? Well, actually, there are several issues. The story is more about wealth. It's a reflection on our priorities. What is important in our life? Are our life choices aligned with our values? If the answers to these questions eludes you, then ask yourself, where do you spend most of your time? Where we spend our time is a strong indicator of our priorities. The rich farmer chooses to focus on the immediate while neglecting the reality that life doesn't always follow our plans. The best laid plans don't always work out. I like the expression, life is risky, eat dessert first. This phrase, life is uncertain, so eat dessert first, is often attributed to several people. But the earliest documented source credits the ballroom dancer and entrepreneur Arthur Murray in 1962. I often encourage individuals that I am counseling to stay in the present moment. Usually they are stuck in the past or are so focused on the future that they are missing the beauty of the present moment around them. The farmer's mistake goes beyond this. He was focused on material possessions and financial opportunities without acknowledging his spiritual needs. To give him the benefit of the doubt, he may have thought he had lots of time, that he could afford to procrastinate. The theme of not waiting is prevalent in the Gospels. These following passages collectively stress the importance of seizing the moment, of responding to the Spirit promptly, and being spiritually prepared rather than procrastinating or waiting passively. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 19 to 20, Jesus calls his disciples, saying, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. This illustrates readiness to act without delay upon Jesus' call. In Luke chapter 19, verse 5 to 6, Jesus tells Zacchaeus, "Come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." Zacchaeus came down at once and welcomed him, gladly showing prompt response, leading to a full transformation. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 1 to 13, which is the parable of the 10 virgins, Jesus highlights the importance of being prepared and acting immediately, as the wise virgins took immediate action to get ready for the bridegroom's arrival, contrasting the foolish ones who are delayed and miss the opportunity. Jesus warns us that one's life ought to not be measured by possessions, but rather how one has lived their faith. Jesus wisely points out that we only have material possessions while we are alive. After our death, our possessions will be given to somebody else. The lesson is not to frighten us, but rather to find the deeper truth of our lives. Life is fragile, unpredictable, and has an ending. I'm not advocating a free-for-all attitude, but rather advocating for balance, finding the balance, recognizing that life is fragile and unpredictable, and planning for a better future. Jesus also is reminding us that we are mortal, that our life will end. I'm not trying to be morbid, but a healthy understanding of our death is necessary for a healthy spirituality. Statistically, sudden death is rare. Most of us will gradually face death. Nevertheless, being relatively comfortable around death will lead us to live better lives, or at least more fully. This may appear to be a contradiction, but it's true. We are less likely to procrastinate once the inevitable is acknowledged. I sometimes pose this question to people whom I'm working with. If you had 24 hours to live, what would you do? I usually receive a wide range of answers, ranging from going to a party, reconciling with a friend, to doing acts of mercy and kindness. The correct answer, if there is one, is to do nothing. The question highlights the need to deal with issues now while we have a chance. Another exercise is to write your own eulogy. What would or could you write? These reflective questions highlight the need to live our life intentionally. What are spiritual treasures? I think of loving relationships, times of deep prayer, faithfulness to the gospel teachings, and an openness to the Spirit are but a few examples of treasures in heaven. The primary gospel passage that talks about storing up treasures in heaven is from Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 to 21, where Jesus teaches, "Do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." This teaching is part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and emphasizes prioritizing spiritual and eternal wealth rather than temporary earthly possession. Luke chapter 12, verse 33 to 34 writes, "Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." In Matthew chapter 19, verse 21, Mark chapter 10, verse 21, and Luke chapter 18, verse 22, all record Jesus telling the rich young ruler to sell his possessions and give to the poor to have treasure in heaven. These passages collectively affirm the call to focus on heavenly rewards through faithfulness, generosity, and devotion to Christ, rather than accumulating material wealth on earth. I want to stress that Jesus did not say that wealth was evil, but rather making us aware of the temporary values of earthly possessions when compared to spiritual possessions. Every person desiring to grow in their spirituality ought to examine their relationship with their possessions. I remember asking my sister how she felt after she sold most of her possessions before moving to Asia for 18 months. She surprised me by describing the experience as kind of freeing. I have to admit, I'm not there. I like nice things. This is a challenging gospel for my spiritual growth and my ability to respond to God's will in my own life. So, I understand if you are struggling to respond to this challenge. I have faith, though, that I will eventually succeed, although it may take a while. Thank you for joining me today. Next week, we'll explore a passage from the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus continues teaches his disciples to be prepared for the unexpected. Jesus calls us to ask what holds us back or prevents us from responding to God's call. If you are new to this podcast, I invite you to explore previous episodes available on major podcast platforms and YouTube. If you are a regular listener to YouTube, I invite you to subscribe. I urge you to share with friends who also have an interest in Scripture. Remember that new episodes are released every Sunday, focusing on the upcoming week's gospel. Your feedback is always welcome and essential to the continued growth of this podcast. I would like to take this time to express my gratitude to my team members, Heather Patel-Doherty and Richard Coulombe, for their invaluable support in preparing each episode. For questions or comments, please feel free to contact me at peter.doherty, that's DOHERTYOMI, @gmail.com. May God bless you abundantly.